Well, it's raining outside, and I'm glad it's raining. Often I hear people complain when it's raining, especially when it's raining hard, but they don't understand that the rain that's falling is necessary for the soil to not to not become overheated and also for the soil to remain fertile. Yes, sunshine is great, but from time to time you need seasons of rain to keep the soil healthy. Because if the soil isn't healthy, there's no vegetation. Without vegetation, there's no food because there are no crops, there are no vegetables. You get the idea. And without vegetation, the soil becomes like the soil of a desert. It becomes a wasteland. Okay, I hope what I've said till now has inspired you. What I wanted to say in this recording, and it's not going to take very long, I may have said it multiple times before in some previous videos. Nevertheless, I want to repeat it because it's important. Not every success is beneficial. But let me say it more clearly or more sharp to you. Not all success comes from God. I mean, in one sense, this is obvious. Let's say, for example, a virus, a deadly virus, latches into gets into our body, and the virus multiplies successfully, and the organism is killed. Now that's success, but is that success that's how to say, is that a success that you should promote? Is that a success that you should recommend? No, of course not. Or you can have a robber who is quite successful in robbing. Yes, he does get the good he wants, but is it really something you should recommend? Now, why am I repeating this? It's because there are many things. I just say there are many things that we perceive as good, but when you use discernment, I'm talking about discernment through the Holy Spirit, you will realize that those things are not as good as we thought they were. Okay, I'm just going to give one illustration, and I'm going to leave it at that. Um, for example, let's say you have a woman called Kelsey and her husband Richard. Okay, just one couple. And for those that are from Asia and other regions, I'm not offending you by using Western names. I grew up in a Western country, that's why I use Western names. Okay? If I would have lived in Japan, I would have used Japanese names often. Okay. Kelsey and Richard. They're a couple. And they have family in law, of course. But here's the thing. Kelsey and Richard, they have a baby. Um, Alex. Or I'm saying Alexander. And one day, Kelsey's mother-in-law visits her. And Alex is 5 years old at this time. And, well, grandmother's there, mother's there, and little Alex is there. But one moment after grandma leaves, Alex talks to his mother. Mom, yes, darling. Kelsey responds, Mom, does grandma love you? And Kelsey becomes frightened by the question. "Oh, yeah, of course. She's grandma. She's my mother. Why do you ask?" And then Alexander says, "Well, she isn't quite loving towards you, Mom." And this incident happens. Kelsey talks about it with her husband. Her husband becomes upset, and her husband deals with their son. And since then, Alexander has learned that you don't speak out when you notice something weird going on. So time passes by. Alex is 25 now. He's about to get married himself. And, well, Alex's parents are still together. The family law is still together. His grandparents are very old now, in their 70s and 80s. But Alex grew up he developed a lot of issues in his mind and in his emotions. And why did this happen? Because the family he was from was successful in the sense that they went to family gatherings, they had a lot of barbecues, they had a lot of Christmas celebrations. All of that was going on. But here's the thing. Richard's parents, which are the grandparents of Alex, Richard's parents never wanted their son to marry that Kelsey. They had this thing against Kelsey. And on the other hand, Kelsey's parents also had something against their daughter. Because their marriage was messed up, and their outlet for their frustration was their daughter. Their sons, they didn't bother with it, but because Kelsey was vulnerable, they tend to project all their fears on Kelsey. So the parents of Richard noticed also that something was odd with Kelsey. Kelsey was the type of girl that would remain quiet and permit a lot of bad things to happen, but at the same time she would become passive aggressive and murmur behind your back and cause a lot of contention. And she did it with Richard and caused disharmony between Richard and Richard's parents. So had an objective reason why they couldn't stand Kelsey. But the two got married anyway, but still there was tension within the marriage, though the disapproval of the parents. And here's the thing, neither Kelsey nor Richard were realistic, and during the marriage, when all the issues resurfaced, they were not capable of resolving issues nor how to deal with them because they had no feedback. They were not ready for this, to put it frank. They had a son, Alex, and of course, little Alex, when he was 5 years old, he was just a kid, but nevertheless, he had more than his own parents at the time. And when Alex was 5 years old, he felt in it. He felt because, as I mentioned before, a human being is a spirit being with a soul living in a body. So the spirit part of you is sensitive to spiritual and emotional frequencies. Alex sensed the negative and hateful frequency coming from his grandmother, and he also noticed that the target of that frequency was his mother, and Alex felt unsafe. And because Alex felt unsafe, it had a bad impact on Alex's development. So when Alex pointed out to his parents, instead of his parents paying attention to it, they wanted to make their marriage and their family successful, and they blamed Alex. So when Alex grew up, he developed this hostile attitude towards everything that made him the least uncomfortable. In some cases, he was the bully on the playground. In other cases, he was the one that would just act out and being mean towards others, just to prevent him from feeling any discomfort. Now, there's no excuse for Alex being that way, absolutely not, but it's understandable. Again, I'm not condoning it nor excusing it, but I'm making clear it's understandable from the environment in which he grew. So yes, there is success over here. The family is so-called together, but is it a good thing? Is it something that is blessed? No, it's not. Look, I'm not giving this illustration to prophesy about your situation because, again, I don't know you, I don't know your circumstances, I don't know all the dynamics of how things are connected around you. I'm giving this illustration to point out to you, not all success comes from God. And just because something has progress, and just because something is working, that does not mean it's blessed. It does not mean it's something that should be defended. Well, Alex, being 25, he married a few days before his 26th birthday, And at this time, Alex, his wife was emotionally mature, and his wife also had a friend who was a believer. And Alex, 2 years within the marriage, I'm finishing the illustration, 2 years in the marriage, Alex noticed that his wife would often take advice from this believer, and it was beneficial to his wife. So Alex also became interested. And but when Alex began to contact this believer and listen to what he had to say, because his wife knew him years before Alex even came into the picture, Alex became uncomfortable, not because of the believer, not because what he had to say, but because what it revealed about him and about his past. So Alex became uncomfortable, but nevertheless, Alex was willingly to acknowledge what's on the inside. And in the marriage, they worked it out. Alex was delivered. Why did I extend the illustration? Because this is what you need to understand. You can pray for someone, and you should pray for people. You should be a blessing unto others. But just understand this. Someone also ought to be willingly to receive the blessing, for the blessing to have an impact upon them. Or better said, for someone to be forgiven, they need to receive forgiveness. The forgiveness is already there, but for the forgiveness to work out on them and them to be forgiven, they need to receive it. So I just wanted to throw that in, because some people think that God's forgiveness is conditional. It's not conditional in the sense that you need to do something for you to be forgiven. The forgiveness is already there, but the only condition on your part is you need to receive it for it to work out in you. And how do you receive it? By repenting. So I want to point out with this video the necessity of repentance also. And look, again, I'm not prophesying or declaring things about your situation. I just want you to be aware. Not everything that works is, how do I say it, is recommendable. I mean, Richard and Kelsey, to put it frank, they should have never been together. Kelsey was manipulative. Kelsey was an emotional tyrant because she wasn't healed from the emotional abuse at hands of her parents. And because of that, she turned into an abuser also. She wasn't delivered. And Richard, at the other hand, he did not enjoy, taking responsibility. He just took most things for granted, and he only acted out when he felt some discomfort. But he never was willing to look on the insides to figure out why he's feeling discomfort. And that's why when they had their son could never point out when something was wrong, because he would be hidden with a belt or whatever. You understand what I'm saying here? It was a success, but it was not from God. Now, am I telling you to go around and analyze people and to make judgment based upon your understanding and based upon this video? No. Keep on praying, keep on fasting, remain in agreement with Christ. And look, so I'm going to end this video with this. There are people that banned you from their lives, or let's say from around them, from their company, and you interpreted them banning you as something's wrong with you. That's why they are rejecting you. That's why they want to hang out with you. And with some of those people, there was no disagreement, no fight, no cussing, there was no conflict, but they just left. And they just are avoiding you. Listen. Just like with Richard. But Richard was in a bad condition. Richard had to be willingly to receive deliverance to be delivered. Because as long as Richard remained toxic, he was toxic to everyone around him. And you have people like Richard around you. You're not in conflict with them. Some of them will maybe even close relatives of yours, or some may not. But as long as they are not receiving deliverance, as long as they are not repenting, they are becoming a danger to those around them with their negative vibration. And you were praying, you were developing in the faith. And understand this, there, when you are in agreement with Christ, that that vibration, that frequency of faith, it automatically, as I'm saying this, when you're operating in that, it automatically blocks frequencies of rage, pain, jealousy, hatred, and malice, emotional addictions. It blocks all those frequencies. So if you had people like Rashid around you, and they were not willing to receive deliverance, neither they didn't want to admit that something is wrong, then them casting you out is really them cursing you out of their company. You know what? It's a good thing for you. Because look, you cannot be a blessing you cannot be a help with to someone by becoming just as stuck as they are. Look, if someone's in a burning building and the firemen arrive, the firemen they are wearing their uniforms to shield them off from the heat and all of that. A fireman cannot join you in the burning building and scream at you, be desperate with you, and be of any good to you. No, he has to be separate from the situation, and he has to be guarded against the situation so that he can come in, grab you, and drag you from that building so that your life is preserved. Some people want you to join them in their misery. They want you to join them in their low vibration because they feel good when people agree with their condition. But here's the thing. You agreeing with their condition is going to affect you. It's going to infect you, It's going to harm you. And most of the time, the people that want you to join their low vibration are the same ones that are going to accuse you and abuse you afterwards. Because they're the ones that are becoming disappointed because they expect you to be a benefit unto them, but you're not a benefit unto them. And there are people that did not have discernment, and they ended up worse off than the people they were trying to help. Now listen, you cannot help anyone without you being in the right condition. And helping someone does not mean solving things for them. Helping someone begins with you agreeing with Christ and being a blessing. Be on the frequency of faith. You are concerned with others. You do love your neighbor as yourself, but you're not agreeing. You're not agreeing with everything they agree with. And you don't give sympathy to their demons. Because listen, when someone's in a situation and they want sympathy, now look, let's say someone tells you that their life is a mess. Someone tells you that they are in trouble. Now, hold on a minute. That individual is alive, right? So their circumstances may be, they may have troubling circumstances. But what's happening, that individual, he or she is identifying with those circumstances. And that's the wrong thing they're doing. And now because they identify with the circumstances, now automatically those demons that are behind those circumstances are seeking validation through that individual. And look, there are people that are so self-centered that they say, I don't care. I don't care your problem. I don't care about your problems. What's happening? They are validating the hurt of that individual by being non-caring. And there's another extreme. There are people who give validation, and because they give validation to the individual, they are now connected to the frequency that's working in, through, and around the person that is identifying with troubling circumstances. So what's the healthy and right thing to do? You acknowledge what the individual said, you acknowledge what's going on, but you're not agreeing with it. And you also make clear that to that individual, listen, you should not identify with circumstances. The problem is not the problem. The problem is your attitude concerning the problem. There's also a quote that's been used in a movie, but it's applicable here. Look, as a believer, you're not apathetic, that you don't care, that you are not concerned with others. You're not selfish, you're not psychopathic. At the same time, you're not foolish either, by just agreeing with all kinds of negative frequencies. Remain on the frequency of faith. Because when you agree with a success that you should not agree with, that's also not right. Well, that's it for now. The rain has stopped. Be blessed. Shalom.